The rain started just as I pulled into the parking garage, fat drops exploding against the windshield with the kind of violence that makes you grateful for shelter. I sat for a moment, engine ticking as it cooled, watching water sheet across the concrete in rivulets that caught the fluorescent lights overhead. My phone buzzed in the cup holder. A text from Maya upstairs, running late with pickup, can you grab Em from daycare? I typed back a quick yes, checked my reflection in the rearview mirror, and noticed the tightness around my eyes that hadn't been there a year ago. 34, and already I looked tired in a way that sleep wouldn't fix. The kind of tired that came from holding yourself together when what you really wanted was to fall apart. The elevator doors opened on the 15th floor and I stepped into the muted elegance of Sterling & Associates, where everything was cream and chrome and carefully controlled. 6 years I'd worked here. 6 years of proving myself, climbing, becoming someone my 22-year-old self wouldn't recognize. I'd made junior partner last spring. My mother had cried when I told her, though I suspected the tears were more about me finally seeming settled than about the actual achievement. She still asks sometimes, in that careful way of hers, if I was happy. I never knew how to answer. Jordan. The voice stopped me 3 steps from my office. I turned to find Rachel Westbrook standing in the doorway of the conference room, one hand resting on the frame in a pose that managed to be both casual and commanding. She wore charcoal gray today, tailored so precisely it looked like armor. Her dark hair was pulled back in a way that emphasized the elegant line of her jaw, the sharp intelligence in her eyes. Do you have a minute? We need to talk about us. The words landed like stones in still water, ripples spreading outward. There was no us. There hadn't been an US in 3 years, not since I'd walked out of her apartment at 2 in the morning with my shoes in my hand and my heart in pieces. Not since I'd realized that what I wanted, stability, commitment, something I could build a life on, wasn't something she could give. Not since I'd chosen my own sanity over the most intense relationship of my life. I have to pick up Emma, I said, keeping my voice professional, distant. My sister's daughter. She's expecting me. This won't take long. Rachel stepped back into the conference room, an invitation and a command rolled into one. She'd always been good at that, at making you feel like you were choosing to do exactly what she wanted. I followed her in because refusing would have been obvious, and the last thing I needed was everyone in the office speculating about why I couldn't have a simple conversation with the senior partner. Rachel closed the door behind me and I immediately regretted my decision. The room felt smaller with just the two of us, intimate in a way that made my pulse quicken. I'm moving back to the main office, Rachel said without preamble. New York. They've asked me to head the litigation department there. The words should have brought relief. Instead, I felt something cold and heavy settle in my chest. Congratulations. That's what you always wanted. 3 years ago, yes. She moved to the window, looking out at the city blurred by rain. Before. The word hung between us, weighted with everything we'd never properly discussed. Before I'd loved her. Before she'd told me she wasn't built for the kind of relationship I needed. Before I'd learned that you could want someone with every cell in your body and still have to walk away. Rachel, I don't think. I'm not going. She turned back to me and I saw something in her face I'd never seen before. Uncertainty. Fear, maybe. I turned it down yesterday. I told them I couldn't leave. Why would you do that? The question came out sharper than I'd intended. That's partner track. That's everything you've worked for. Because of Emma. The room tilted slightly. What? Your niece, Emma. Rachel's voice was steady, but I could see her hands trembling slightly where she gripped the back of a chair. I need to tell you something, and I need you to listen to the whole thing before you react. Can you do that? I wanted to leave. Every instinct screamed at me to walk out, to protect myself from whatever was coming. But something in her expression held me frozen. I nodded. Emma is mine, Rachel said quietly. Biologically. I donated eggs 4 years ago through a clinic. Anonymous donation, or so I thought. I was 36, I knew I wasn't going to have children the traditional way, and I wanted to help someone who did want them. That was the extent of it. A transaction, clinical, separate from my life. My mind stuttered, trying to process. Emma. 3 years old, with dark curls and eyes the color of espresso. Emma, who'd come to live with Maya and me 18 months ago when our sister Lily died in a car accident. Emma, whose father had never been in the picture, who Lily had raised alone until she couldn't anymore. 6 months ago I saw her, Rachel continued. You brought her to the office holiday party. She was wearing that red dress and she kept trying to steal cookies off the dessert table. And I thought she looked familiar in some vague way, the way strangers sometimes do. But then she turned and smiled at you and I saw it. My mother's smile. Exact same crooked left corner. I have photos, Jordan. I went home and pulled out every picture of my mother I had, and there it was, identical. No. The word came out strangled. No, that's not, Lily would have told me. She would have said something. Would she? Think about it. Lily was private about that whole process. She never told anyone who the donor was, never talked about the clinic. And she died before, Rachel's voice caught. Before she could tell you anything. I sank into a chair, my legs suddenly unreliable. Lily. Brilliant, independent Lily who'd wanted a child more than anything and hadn't wanted to wait for a partner who might never materialize. Who'd researched for months before choosing a clinic. Who'd been so careful, so deliberate about every choice. Lily, who'd looked at me from her hospital bed after the accident and made me promise to take care of Emma, to give her the stability and love she deserved. I don't understand why you're telling me this now. My voice sounded distant, like it belonged to someone else. What do you want? I had a DNA test done. Rachel pulled a folded paper from her pocket and set it on the table between us. I needed to be sure before I said anything. The results came back last week. I'm her biological mother, Jordan. And I know I have no legal rights. I know you and Maya are her guardians and you've been raising her and I would never try to take that away from you. But I can't leave. I can't move across the country and never see her again. I stared at the paper without touching it. 3 years old and Emma was already collecting mothers like stamps. Lily, gone. Maya, who'd stepped up without hesitation. Me, trying my best. And now Rachel, materializing out of Emma's genetic code like a ghost made flesh. She doesn't know you, I said finally. You're just my boss to her. Someone she's seen a handful of times. I know. And maybe that's how it should stay. Maybe I should just be someone in the background, making sure she's okay from a distance. But Jordan, Rachel's voice broke slightly and she steadied it with visible effort. I'm asking you to let me try. To let me get to know her. Not as her mother, I know that's not my role. But as someone who cares about her. Someone who could be in her life, in whatever capacity makes sense. The absurdity of it crashed over me. Rachel Westbrook, who'd told me point-blank 3 years ago that she wasn't cut out for domestic life, for compromise, for putting anyone else's needs ahead of her career. Rachel, who'd broken my heart because she couldn't imagine herself in a relationship that required vulnerability and sacrifice. Now asking to be part of Emma's life. Part of my life, by extension. I need to think about this, I said, standing. My purse felt heavy on my shoulder, everything felt heavy. I need to pick up Emma and I need to think. Of course. Take whatever time you need. Rachel's professional mask slipped back into place, but I could see the fear beneath it. Jordan, I know this is complicated. I know our history makes it more complicated. But Emma deserves. Don't. I held up a hand. Don't tell me what Emma deserves. I've been the one getting up with her nightmares. I've been the one explaining why her mama isn't coming back. Maya and I have been building a life for her from scratch and we've been doing it without you. I know that. I do. I'm not trying to diminish anything you've done. I'm just asking for a chance. I left without answering, taking the stairs because I couldn't stand the thought of being trapped in an elevator with my own thoughts. Emma. Rachel. The DNA test sitting on the conference room table, like evidence of a crime I hadn't known was being committed. By the time I reached the parking garage, the rain had intensified, drumming on the concrete ceiling like impatient fingers. Emma was the last child at Little Sprouts, playing with blocks in the corner, while Miss Jennifer read a book at the desk. She looked up when I came in and her whole face transformed, that smile that was apparently Rachel's mother's smile, apparently genetic, apparently something Emma would carry through her whole life without ever knowing where it came from. Aunt Geordie. She crashed into my legs with the full-body enthusiasm of a 3-year-old who hasn't learned yet that affection should be measured. I scooped her up, breathing in the scent of apple juice and playground mulch, and felt tears prick behind my eyes. "Hey, sunshine. Ready to go home? Maya making pasta?" Emma's vocabulary was expanding daily, a constant reminder that childhood moved fast, that the window for knowing your parents was finite and precious. "Probably. You'll have to check when we get there." I carried her to the car, buckled her into her seat, and drove through the rain-soaked streets on autopilot while she chattered about her day. A friend had shared crackers. They'd painted. Miss Jennifer had read a story about a rabbit who was afraid of everything but then learned to be brave. "Like me," Emma said solemnly. "I was scared but now I'm brave." "You're the bravest person I know," I told her, and meant it. She'd lost her mother and her entire world, and somehow she still woke up every morning ready to paint and play and share crackers. Children were terrifying in their resilience. Maya was indeed making pasta when we arrived, the apartment filled with the smell of garlic and herbs. She looked up from the stove, saw my face, and immediately her expression shifted to concern. "What happened?" "Later," I mouthed, nodding toward Emma, who was already dragging her step-stool to the counter to help. "We had rules about this. No adult problems in front of Emma. No arguments, no stress, nothing that would make her feel like her world was unstable again. She'd had enough instability to last a lifetime." We ate dinner with forced cheerfulness, Emma narrating the entire meal with 3-year-old logic that made Maya laugh despite the questions in her eyes. Bath time, story time, the elaborate bedtime routine that Emma insisted on because routine meant safety, meant tomorrow would come. When she finally fell asleep, clutching the stuffed elephant that had been Lily's, I collapsed on the couch next to Maya and told her everything. She listened without interrupting, her face going through a series of expressions I couldn't quite read. When I finished, she was quiet for a long moment, staring at her hands. "Lily knew," she said finally. "What?" "Not about Rachel specifically. But she knew using a clinic meant someday this might happen. She talked about it once, when she first found out she was pregnant. She said she'd chosen anonymous donation because she wanted Emma to be fully hers, but she knew biology didn't work that way. She knew somewhere out there was a person who'd given half of Emma's DNA, and that person might want to know her someday." "And she was okay with that?" Maya shrugged. "She said she'd deal with it if it happened. That Emma's best interests would always come first." She looked at me and I saw Lily in her eyes, the same determination, the same fierce protectiveness. "So I guess the question is, what are Emma's best interests?" I didn't have an answer. I lay awake that night in the room I'd turned into mine when we'd moved into this apartment, this life we were building from the ruins of Lily's. Rain pattered against the window and I thought about Rachel's face when she'd said she couldn't leave. About Emma's smile. About the strange mathematics of family, how it sometimes added up in ways you'd never expect. The next morning I called Rachel before I could talk myself out of it. "Coffee," I said when she answered. "This afternoon. Just us, somewhere not the office." We met at a place downtown, neutral territory, the kind of cafe where people had serious conversations over mediocre lattes. Rachel was already there when I arrived, sitting at a corner table with her hands wrapped around a cup she didn't seem to be drinking from. She looked different outside the office. Smaller somehow. More uncertain. "Thank you for coming," she said as I sat down. "I'm not promising anything. I need you to understand that. This is just a conversation." "I understand. Why didn't you tell me?" The question came out before I could stop it. 3 years ago, when things fell apart between us. You said you couldn't do relationships, couldn't do commitment. You made it sound like you were incapable of caring about anyone but yourself. Was that a lie? Rachel flinched. No. It was the truth, or what I believed was the truth. I'd spent my whole life building my career. I was good at law, good at being alone. Relationships were messy and distracting, and I'd convinced myself I didn't need them. She met my eyes. And then you walked into my life and terrified me because suddenly I wanted all the messy, distracting things I'd told myself I was above. I wanted to wake up next to you every morning. I wanted to meet your family and have you meet mine. I wanted a future that wasn't just work and solitude. And it scared me so badly that I sabotaged it. You broke my heart. I know. I broke my own too, if that matters. She set down her cup and I saw that her hands were shaking. I'm not asking you to forgive me for that. I'm not asking for us to try again. I know that ship has sailed. I'm asking for a chance to know Emma. That's separate from you and me. That's about her. Is it though? How can it be separate when I'm the one raising her? When you being in her life means you being in mine. I gripped my own cup harder, feeling the heat seep through the cardboard. You hurt me, Rachel. And I've spent 3 years putting myself back together, and now you're asking me to let you back in. I know what I'm asking. And I know I have no right to ask it. But Jordan, Rachel's voice cracked. I saw her at the office last week. You'd brought her in because Maya had a doctor's appointment. She was coloring at your desk and she looked up at me and asked if I had any kids. And I wanted to say yes. I wanted to tell her everything right there, but instead I just said no, and she told me that was sad because kids are fun, and then she went back to coloring. And I went to my office and cried for the first time in years because I have a child and she doesn't know me and it's my own fault. I'd seen Rachel argue cases in front of judges, seen her negotiate million-dollar settlements without blinking, seen her fire people without a flicker of emotion. I'd never seen her cry. The sight of tears on her cheeks did something to my resolve. If I say yes, I started slowly, there are rules. She doesn't know about the biological connection, not yet. You're just my friend who wants to spend time with her. We go slow. And if at any point I think this is hurting her, we stop. Her well-being comes before your feelings, before my feelings, before everything. Of course. Whatever you need. And you have to tell me why. Really why. Because I need to understand if this is about Emma or about easing your own guilt. Rachel was quiet for a long moment, looking out the window at people passing by, all of them living lives that weren't as complicated as ours. Both, she admitted finally. I can't separate the two completely. Yes, I feel guilty. Yes, knowing she exists and not knowing her feels like there's a part of me missing I didn't know I had. But Jordan, when I saw her smile, when I heard her laugh, it wasn't about me. It was about her. About this person who exists because of a choice I made, who deserves every opportunity, every bit of love and stability and joy she can get. And if I can contribute to that in any way, I want to. Not to replace anyone, not to claim some role I haven't earned. Just to be there. I studied her face, looking for dishonesty, for the selfish ambition I'd come to associate with her. But all I saw was raw, uncertain hope. The kind of hope that could be crushed easily, and maybe that gave me some power back, some control in a situation that felt wildly out of my control. Okay, I said. We can try. The relief on Rachel's face was so profound it was almost painful to witness. We spent the next hour working out logistics like we were negotiating a contract. Casual visits first, maybe coming to the park with us on weekends. Gradually building familiarity. No pressure, no forced bonding, just presence and time. When we finally left the cafe, stepping out into afternoon sunshine that felt like a rebuke to the rain of the day before, I felt exhausted and wired all at once. Jordan, Rachel said as we stood on the sidewalk, people flowing around us like water around stones. Thank you. I know that doesn't cover it, but thank you. I nodded, not trusting my voice, and walked to my car. I sat in the driver's seat for a long time before starting the engine, trying to understand what I'd just agreed to. Trying to imagine Rachel in Emma's life. Trying not to imagine what Rachel back in my life, even peripherally, might do to the careful equilibrium I'd built. That Saturday we met at the park. Emma was thrilled to have another adult to show her playground prowess to, especially one who seemed genuinely impressed by her ability to climb the big slide. Rachel pushed her on the swings with a carefulness that spoke of someone who'd never spent time around children, asking me quietly if she was doing it right, if Emma liked going higher or if it was too much. You're doing fine, I told her, watching Emma's hair fly out behind her with each arc, her laughter bright and uncomplicated. She'll tell you if she doesn't like something. She's not shy. She's like Lily. Rachel said it so quietly I almost didn't hear. I looked at her sharply. You never met Lily. No. But you talked about her. Before. You told me she was fearless, that she went after what she wanted without apology. Emma has that in her. You can see it already. It was true and it hurt, the way all observations about Emma's connection to Lily hurt. The way I could see Lily in Emma's stubborn chin, in the way she approached new challenges with excitement rather than caution. Lily had been like that too, right up until a drunk driver had crashed through an intersection and stolen her future. She has you in her too, Rachel said, and when I turned to her questioningly, she nodded toward where Emma had abandoned the swings to make friends with a small girl near the sandbox. That instinct to take care of people. To make sure everyone's included. That's you. We watched the children play, Rachel and I standing side by side but careful not to touch, maintaining the distance we'd agreed on. When Emma ran over demanding we watch her navigate the monkey bars, Rachel cheered with the same enthusiasm I'd learned to provide, and I saw Emma's face light up at the attention. Over the next weeks, Rachel became a fixture in our periphery. She came to the park most Saturdays, started joining us for Sunday breakfasts at the diner Emma loved. Maya was wary at first but gradually relaxed as she saw Rachel making genuine effort, saw how Emma responded to her. Emma, for her part, seemed to accept Rachel's presence the way children accept most things, with straightforward enthusiasm and a complete lack of questioning. Rachel's nice, she announced one evening after Rachel had left, her 3-year-old assessment delivered with absolute certainty. She knows about birds. This was apparently the highest compliment, as Emma had recently become obsessed with birds after finding a robin's nest near our building. Rachel had brought a field guide the next week, had sat with Emma on a park bench identifying every bird they saw. I'd watched from a few feet away, supposedly supervising but really just observing the careful way Rachel listened to Emma's observations, never talking down to her, treating her questions with the same seriousness she'd give a colleague. It was during one of these park visits, about 2 months in, that Emma fell. Not seriously, just a tumble off a low platform that resulted in a scraped knee and bruised pride. But she cried hard, the way children do when they're more startled than hurt, and Rachel moved without thinking, scooping her up and murmuring comfort in a voice I'd never heard her use before. "You're okay, sweetheart. You're okay. Let's get you fixed up." She carried Emma to a bench, pulling out the first aid kit I kept in my bag, cleaning the scrape with gentle efficiency while Emma hiccuped against her shoulder. "It hurts," Emma whimpered. "I know it does. But you were so brave. Did you see how high you climbed before you fell? That was amazing." "Really? Really? You're one of the bravest people I know." I watched Rachel smooth Emma's hair back from her face and saw something shift in her expression, a tenderness so naked it made me look away. When Emma's tears had subsided and she'd run off to play again, Rachel stayed on the bench, staring at her hands. "I can't do this," she said quietly. My stomach dropped. "What?" "I can't keep pretending she's just some kid I know. Jordan, I can't." She looked up at me and her eyes were wet. "Every time I'm with her, I want to tell her. Every time she calls you Aunt Jordy, I want to say I'm your mother too. I know that's not fair, I know I signed away that right, but being near her and not being able to claim her is killing me. You don't get to do this." I kept my voice low but couldn't keep the anger out of it. "You don't get to decide this is too hard and back out. You promised me you could handle this." "I know what I promised. And I'm not backing out, I need you to understand how difficult this is. I know you're angry. You have every right to be. But please don't shut me out completely." I wanted to. God, I wanted to tell her to leave, to go back to her safe, controlled life and stop disrupting ours. But I looked over at Emma, happily playing again, the scrape on her knee already forgotten, and I thought about what Maya had said. Emma's best interests. Not mine, not Rachel's. Emma's. "We should tell her," I said. Rachel's head snapped up. "What?" "Not everything. Not yet. But we should tell her that you helped her mama have her. Kids understand family in bigger ways than we think. She knows Maya and I aren't her mama, but we love her anyway. She can understand that you're part of her story too." "Are you sure?" I wasn't. I wasn't sure about anything except that watching Rachel suffer in silence wasn't sustainable, and watching Emma grow up not knowing part of her own history felt wrong. "We talk to Maya first. We figure out how to explain it in terms a 3-year-old can understand. And we do it together, all of us. She needs to know her whole family is on the same page." That night, after Emma was asleep, Maya and I sat at the kitchen table with tea neither of us was drinking, and I explained what I decided. Maya was quiet for a long time, her fingers drumming against her mug in the way they did when she was thinking hard. "Lily would want her to know," she said finally. She was big on truth, on kids being able to handle more than adults gave them credit for. "But Jordan, are you ready for this? Because once we tell Emma, Rachel's in her life permanently. Not as some friend who might drift away. As family. I know. And you and Rachel, all that history. This isn't about me and Rachel. That's over. This is about Emma. Maya gave me a look that said she didn't entirely believe me but was choosing not to push it. Okay. Let's do it right then. This weekend, all of us together. We'll explain it as simply as we can and answer whatever questions she has. We planned it carefully. Sunday morning, after Emma had eaten and was in a good mood, before she got tired and cranky. We decided on the living room, familiar and comfortable, with all three of us there so Emma wouldn't feel ambushed. Rachel arrived early, her nervousness evident in the way she couldn't seem to sit still. What if she doesn't understand? She asked for the third time. What if this confuses her or upsets her? Then we explain again, I said with more confidence than I felt. Kids are resilient. She'll be okay. When Emma came out of her room, dragging her favorite blanket, she lit up at seeing Rachel. You're here early. I wanted to talk to you about something, Rachel said, her voice only slightly unsteady. Something important. Is that okay? Emma nodded seriously and climbed onto the couch between Maya and me, her blanket bunched in her lap. She looked at each of us in turn, picking up on the gravity of the moment with the intuition children have. I started because I'd practiced this, because Emma trusted me to tell her hard truths gently. Emma, you know how you had a mama named Lily who loved you very much? Mama's in heaven, Emma said matter-of-factly. We'd been over this many times. That's right. And you know how I'm your Aunt Geordie and Maya is your Aunt Maya, and we love you and take care of you. Aha. Well, sometimes families are bigger than just the people you live with. Sometimes there are other people who are connected to you in special ways. I glanced at Rachel, who was gripping the arm of her chair so hard her knuckles were white. Rachel is connected to you in a special way too. When your mama wanted to have you, she needed help from someone. Rachel was the person who helped. So in a way, Rachel is part of why you're here. Emma frowned, processing this. Like how Miss Jennifer helped make cookies at school? Sort of like that, yes. Rachel gave something to your mama that helped make you. So Rachel is like, she's your other mother, in a biological way. Do you know what biological means? Like biology? With animals. Rachel laughed, a slightly strangled sound. Yes, exactly like that. It's about how your body works, how you were made. Your mama Lily raised you and loved you and was your real mama in every way that matters. But I helped in the very beginning, with the science part. Emma looked at Rachel with new interest. So you're my science mama? Yes. I guess I am. Cool. Emma considered this for a moment. Can I still call you Rachel? You can call me whatever you want. Okay. Can we go to the park now? We all laughed, the tension breaking like a soap bubble. Leave it to a 3-year-old to take earth-shattering news and move on in less than 5 minutes. But as Emma ran to get her shoes, Rachel's face crumpled. She doesn't understand, she whispered. She doesn't get what this means. She understands enough, Maya said gently. She knows you're important, that you're part of her family. The rest will come with time. This is how kids process things. They need to live with information before it really sinks in. Maya was right. Over the following weeks, Emma would periodically bring it up, asking questions that showed she was piecing things together. Why did Rachel live somewhere else if she was family? Did science mamas love their kids the same as regular mamas? Could she have 2 mamas even though one was in heaven and one was a science mama? We answered everything as honestly as we could, and gradually I saw the knowledge settle into Emma's understanding of her world. She started calling Rachel Mama Rachel sometimes, which made Rachel tear up the first time it happened. She accepted Rachel's presence in her life with the same ease she'd accepted everything else, adding her to the collection of people who loved her. What I hadn't anticipated was how Rachel being in Emma's life would affect me. We were thrown together constantly now, birthday parties and doctor's appointments and the endless logistical negotiations of raising a child. We developed a rhythm, a partnership built around Emma's needs. And slowly, almost imperceptibly, the sharp edges of our past began to soften.